Hi, this is Kelly from The Truth and Story, and today I just wanted to actually do a little bit of a ramble with you. um, I was just at the store and I I noticed that all of the holiday stuff, you have all the aisles now already with the not just Thanksgiving and Halloween and fall things, but also Christmas stuff. All that stuff is getting put up. And here, I live in the northern part of the United States, and so the weather today was wonderful and cool. I mean, I could actually put a sweater on and jeans, and I love fall. I don't like winter and I don't like snow, but I do love fall, and I really wouldn't want to live in a place that didn't have fall because I love it. There's just such a wonderful feeling for me about fall. But at the same time, as soon as fall starts to come around, I already start to feel that sense of the holidays coming. And for those of you who've watched my Journey with Grief video, you'll understand, if I will put the link to that video in the description box below. But for me, this is going to be the second set of holidays to going through since the loss of my son. He was 23. And so I can already feel that sort of churning a little bit in the pit of the stomach, and that sort of little bit of knowledge that the holidays are coming. I can kind of just feel that sort of energy in the kind of right here in my gut, that sort of, I'm sure that that's the chakra. So if somebody wants to tell me what the chakra is, like above your diaphragm, there's got to be a chakra there. That's my feeling, because you just get that feeling in that, people say in the pit of your stomach, although it's not down there in your stomach, maybe it is your stomach, because that's probably your intestines down there. See, now I'm rambling. But if somebody knows if that's a chakra, just please let me know. I keep telling you I need to look up chakras, but you just get that feeling in your gut where it's like you kind of have to take an extra deep breath. And the holidays are coming. For my son, Halloween was everything. He loved Halloween. I truly believe he loved Halloween more than he loved Christmas. He loved dressing up. He loved going to his local church, and where they have like the huge things, like where all the kids can come to go trick-or-treating, within the confines of the church. And so he would set up a table, and as Dr. Bones usually, or sometimes a mad scientist, and he would set up a table just full of real bones. He collected a lot of real bones and fake bones, and he would set all that he loved, as the kids would come to the table, they'd get candy, and they could talk to him about this particular skull here or whatever, and he just loved it. He just loved Halloween. I have many, 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 many fond memories of it. And I think that that's one of the things about the holidays. I do deal with people a lot. Thankfully, that's actually been a very wonderful and healing experience for me, is being able to work with people and dealing with their own losses, because I think anytime that you can share that with somebody else, that you can reach out and impact somebody, they impact you back. There's never, I don't believe, there's never just a one-way energy exchange. There's always an exchange. And so for me, being able to work with people in the area of grief and loss has been extremely healing. And so I know that there's a lot of people out there that are in the same boat as I am, where the holidays are starting to, you can feel Halloween around the corner. You can feel, Thanksgiving around. Some of us people have extra holidays. We have a cookie day that's, before Thanksgiving, that's in some ways bigger than Thanksgiving itself. So all those kinds of things start, when you think about holidays, they're supercharged. I can go to the grocery store, to just some random store like Barnes and Nobles, and see a little game figure. This happened to me not that long ago. There's a little a little game figure from Legends of Zelda. And, you know, instantly, like you can really just be walking along and you see this little Link figure and think, and all of a sudden you just kind of get hit with that sort of, oh my gosh, you know, Michael would have been all over that. Um, and you get that little wave, and then as things progress and you start to learn to integrate the loss into your life, you know, some at the beginning that becomes overwhelming and I might have had to leave the store, whereas now I can sit those and it hits, but then it kind of, you know, it hits, it rushes up, and then it kind of ebbs back down, and then I can continue on. When you think about a holiday, that is, you know, infused with so much memories. You know, in my case, my son was 23, so 23 years of focused energy and memories on these days, like birthdays and Mother's Day and Halloween and Cookie Day and Thanksgiving and Christmas, and you know, all those kinds of things start to, even my own birthday, because my son was loved doing things for my birthday that just, you know, they were little things that nobody else would ever think of doing. So, you know, we both like to game, and so if we were on the same game, we played World of Warcraft for a very long time. And so for my birthday, you know, I had a lot of characters. This is a total ramble off, but I had a lot of tunes, and so he always had way more gold than I did. I never had gold. I was terrible about it because I liked to buy things. Still like to buy things. I still don't have a lot of gold on the games I play, but anyway, he always had tons of gold because he really played it a lot. He would sell things and whatever, so he always had lots of gold, and I was always begging for gold from him. And so on my birthdays or Mother Day or whatever, he would give me a bunch of gold, but he wouldn't just give it to me. He would split it up to all my different tunes, so that I had to log into them all and get it. He would leave little random items in my mailboxes of games that you know, just little flowers. They didn't do anything. They were just like these little random things that you could find, but little bouquets of flowers and hearts and little gemstones. Again, they meant absolutely nothing, even within the game itself. And yet, you know, you just go in there and find those. And he would do all kinds of things like that on my birthday. Buy me a skin for, you know, League of Legends, when I was playing League of Legends at the time. Things that, you know, were just Michael. You know, those are Michael things. And so even my birthday coming up gets infused with those kinds of moments that are wonderful. You know, they're very bittersweet because you don't want to lose the memories, but they're also difficult. So, but my point being is that I'm not the only person that is going through that. I know this because you know, I've done many of my journey with grief readings with people. You know, that's something that a reading that I do a lot of, because there are a lot of people who are dealing with loss, and I'm not just talking about loss of for me, a child, you know, for somebody else, maybe a sibling or a parent or a spouse or a significant other. But not even just that. You know, I've been surprised at the things that people will come to and you request that reading for, that aren't just about a physical loss. You know, sometimes it's the loss of a family through events, sometimes in their control and sometimes not in their control. You know, some people have to, let's say, walk away from a family situation that's toxic and cut ties with their family because it's not good for them. And maybe they've even made that decision to walk away from that relationship, and it was the right decision to make. There's still a loss there. There's still a severance there that is very difficult, even though it was, you know, their own decision. It was still very, very difficult. And this holiday still have the power of all those memories and the power of being in a moment that's supposed to be family oriented, but having your family fractured for whatever reason. Some people have, you know, lost, you know, long-term relationships. I have gotten people that have requested those readings for long-term relationships that have ended, that maybe they didn't even see the ending coming, and so it did, you know, come out of the blue. And that this is devastating to, you know, if you spent 10 years, 12 years, you know, whatever, then 6 years, whatever amount of time where you've built up a life around something and then it ends and your life abruptly changes, you know, that's difficult to deal with. And when the holidays come up, even, you know, those situations are more difficult because you have, and especially if it's a fresh thing, it's difficult. I will say, you know, the first year was very hard because you have that sense of, you know, you want to be in with family things. I have a very large family, a very wonderful large family. And so you don't want to miss out on those things, but at the same time, the idea of being in those situations minus Michael is nauseating. But you also don't want to you want to be with your family also, so it's a kind of push pull. So early on, you know, but that kind of lost my train of thought. But my point is that there are many reasons why. There are many reasons and many people who are kind of moving into this next phase. And you can just really feel, I think that there's an energy shift in September because you are moving into the fall. And so that sense, and you do have that sense, excuse me, and so there's like an energy shift in fall. I don't know if it's just for me, because I am such a fall person, but you can feel it. You can feel sort of the energy shifting in, and so I know that I'm not the only person who is kind of feeling this shift and feeling that kind of, oh, you know, here comes the holidays. not and yes, in a happy way and a non-happy way. Like it's a very mixed feeling, but I know because people message me and people you know, message me personally after the first video that I put, and you know, people share their stories, and it's very touching to me because, you know, everybody deals with loss at one point in their lives or another. We all, you know, life is a cycle of losing and gaining, and you know, birth and death and all those things. That this is not just a one-time birth and one-time death thing. It's a, you know, a constant cycle that we're all in, of beginnings and endings. And endings are difficult. And once the endings take place, it's difficult then to get back into the next cycle of things without, you know, with all the baggage that you've left behind in the past. And so I guess really I just mostly want to come on and say that for those of you who have suffered with loss or are suffering with grief or of one form or another, and again, I'm coming at this kind of conversation from the loss of my son because that's my current experience. But there are many, many, many ways to of loss and of being in a situation in which you're feeling grief. And I just want to make sure that you know, that you can hear that you're not alone. You know, you really aren't. There's many people who are dealing with this situation. And I think that at the holidays can be, Isabel, can I just say that if you are in the process of dealing with grief, that you should probably get a puppy, because it gets really difficult to be sitting here. I'm sitting here trying to have a conversation about grief and loss and letting people know that they're not alone, and I'm hearing this crunching going on in the background, or like a bag rustling going on, and I go back there and she has like a bag of animal, I love frosted animal cookies. Again, total rabbit trail, but I do. And so she loves them too. She shouldn't have them. I know I'm bad, but she loves them. And so I had them in a Ziploc bag, and she was sitting there. She literally crunched them so she could get little holes and get little bits out of it. So this is, yeah, I see you. You're wicked. See, I can't even have a serious conversation. She's been wonderful for me, I will say. Not that I say everybody who's dealing with loss or grief should go get a dog, because, you know, I would not have needed a dog at the beginning, but she was the best thing I ever did, that's for sure. But anyways, I'm not sure where I was before Miss Isabel decided. You want to say hello? Now she's just sitting here because she knows she's in trouble. This is a wicked puppy. This is a wicked puppy. You're wicked. Yeah, I know. I love you. She's very wicked. So, but this is not just for me to ramble on, and I have to get my brain back. So the point of this video is just to say that, to be aware for yourself, because sometimes, it really didn't dawn on me. I definitely had a more, and it's just been a hectic week anyways, just with work and, various things kind of piling up so that it was a little bit hectic for me. But I could feel that it was something, I definitely had something more, and I really didn't put my finger on it until I was out and about. And as soon as I started seeing, I was looking at sort of the holiday things, and it just really did start to hit me that I was kind of internally gearing up for it before I even in my head realized that I was starting to gear myself up or sort of gird my armor or so. It kind of has that feeling of it before I was even aware of it. So I did want to say to people to be aware of it, both for yourself, if you're feeling more on edge and this kind of thing, that that's her paper plate. She likes to shred paper plates, which is a pain in the butt because I have to clean up the shredded paper plates, but she likes it so much. That's kind of, anyway. So you, it's good to be aware of it so that you can kind of say, okay, this is where I am. So what are the things that I need to do so that I can take care of myself in this time period? And the other thing is for other people who are maybe have friends and family. I mean, again, because everybody's touched by loss in one way or another. So that it would be very rare for somebody not to know of somebody else who was in a situation in which they were dealing with loss, struggling with loss and that type of thing in one form or another. And so I think that it's good for other people who are supporting, if you have friends and family or somebody else who is, excuse me, I got itches. For other people who are supporting friends and family who are going through the grieving process. It's good for you also to be aware that these holidays and this kind of shift in the seasons and this move into the holidays is very difficult for somebody who's in the grieving process. And so just to be aware of that for those people that you might be personally supporting, to give them a little bit of extra grace, a little bit of extra space holding, it's that idea. I think that really one of the bigger things that I've learned in the grieving process and with the people that have been supportive to me for getting through that, it's the idea of holding space. I think I talked about this in Journey with Grief. So I won't talk about it for very long, but there's that idea of holding space, and that sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. Many times there's nothing you can do about it, but just for knowing that somebody is allowing you to have the space to grieve, but is still there. It's a very hard thing to describe to someone who doesn't get it because there are people who are doers, so they need to get in there and fix the problem. This is not a problem that can be fixed. They want to get in, and some people want to get in and distract somebody, and sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes you don't need to be distracted. Sometimes you just need people to understand where you are, and just kind of be there without being there. You know what I mean? Sort of being there or being like all up in somebody's business. And so there is, that's something that I learned to really value in the people around me, that were there enough to say, how are you doing? Is there something that I can do to make things better? Would you like to go get a cup of coffee? Or I would get random, because I like to read. So I would get random Amazon coupons in my email to be able to get a Kindle book. Those kinds of things that were giving me space and giving me a message that said, I'm here and I understand where you are, but I'm not going to, smother you to death. I became to really, really value that that space. And so I think that, which I think I'm definitely rabbit train, because I wasn't intending to do this. I really was coming home from shopping and things, and it was just kind of on my mind. And I thought, if it's on my mind, it's on a lot of other people's minds that are in the same position. So again, in a nutshell, to bring it around, Kelly, to bring it back around, in a nutshell, for you, if you're going through a grieving process of whatever it may be that you've dealt with, and it may be a long time ago. It can be like the severing of family ties. Could have happened a long time ago, but when the holidays come up, that can really, jump to the forefront. So for you to be aware yourself, that these kinds of things can be ramping up, so that you can do, your own self, and what are those things that of self-care that you can do to sort of reevaluate kind of where you are in the situation, or also for you, if you do know somebody else who is in the grieving process, and don't put a time limit on it. Just because somebody, maybe 5 years ago lost their spouse or something, when the holidays come up, I can tell you that that's in the forefront of their mind. And so, just give that person that an extra hug, and if they're a huggy person. If they're not, don't do it. A little extra grace, a little note that just says, I know this time must be really rough for you, and anything I can do for you, I'll do. Just give them some extra grace, because we're starting to roll into that time period. So I did want to point that out. Now, just so that I could bring this around, because what I intend to do, tonight's a full moon, so it's a wonderful time to do a reading. So I just wanted to, I don't even remember if I did this in my, oops, okay, so yeah, again, I was so completely not prepared to do this. Oops, this is not my book. I was so not prepared to do this that I wasn't prepared, which makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? So get a deck of cards. There we go. Our beautiful. So what I intend to do, and this is something that you can do if you're in the process of grieving. This is a lot similar, very similar to what I do with my grief kind of readings that I do with people. I really like 3-card readings for this, and I have a blog post about this, and we'll put that. I have a blog post about this, and I'll put a link to that in the description box, because it shows sort of what the positions are that I use. But I use 3-card reading, and this shows 3 positions, obviously, and here I'm just really grabbing 3 things randomly and upside down. And all 3, no, 2 major arcanas and a minor arcana. So these are the 3 that I drew. So the first position is about grief. So for me, the term grief is the process. That's the process of grieving, the nuts and bolts of grieving, and the physical aspects of grieving. All of the stages of grief. These kinds of things like that. The actual grief process. So here I got the Wheel of Fortune, and obviously I didn't shuffle these very long or anything, but this is something that I will do for myself tonight, because I felt that sort of feeling like, okay, it's time for me. I did this quite often to touch bases. I was going to say the first year, but I really didn't think about doing this till later on. So it was after right around the first year mark. I started doing this, and I would check in with myself, and I would say, okay, what do I need to know to help me get to this particular phase about the grieving process? And so I got the Wheel of Fortune. So what that says to me immediately is that that idea of understanding that grief is a cycle. They do talk a lot about the stages of grief. And sometimes that gives us feeling as if it is very linear. We're going to get to this stage, go to this stage, go to this stage. And my experience with grief is that is not the case. You know, and I've even seen some graphs where it was more like look more like, you know, up and down and up and down. But I think it's just more spirally. It's a cycle. And even the asks, you know, life is full of cycles. And so it's not surprising that the aspect of grieving is also full of cycles and full of upswings and downswings. And it's easier to ride out the downswings when you know that, okay, this is rough right now, but it's going to swing back up. And even when you're at the upswing of understanding, like, okay, this is where I'm in a great period right now, I still need to do the internal work because the downswings are coming. And so I need to continue to do the work even when I'm feeling up here. I still need to keep checking in with myself and to not stop that sort of aspect of checking in when I'm at the top either. And then you do, you know, grief starts to cycle. The cycles at the beginning, the cycles are constant. And so you're constantly within, you know, 5 minutes, an hour, you know, in all seriousness, like it can be very, very fast. And so as the grieving process goes on and you move through integrating that into the rest of your life, the space between starts to be a little spaced out more until these kinds of things hit. So anyways, for me, this would be a reminder to me to remember that it is a cycle, that when you're on a downswing, it doesn't mean you're back to the beginning. It just means you're in a downswing. You know, I don't need to put too much of emphasis on the fact that, okay, yeah, I'm going into something that's not going to be all fun. It's going to be difficult, but I will get through it and I will swing back up. So this kind of quickly would come to me, would be that idea. Of life as a cycle, and the grieving process is a cycle. The next position for me is about integrating. What is it that I need to integrate about the loss into my current life? This integration, because this spread for me is all about understanding that there is no recovery from grief. There is no point in which grief for me is going to end. The loss of my son is permanent. Okay, I do believe in a hereafter and these kinds of things, but here and now, in this life that I'm living, the loss of my son is permanent. And so that is always going to be a part of my life. I'm not going to recover from that, because has that sense of getting back to the way things were before, and that's never ever going to happen. And so for me, what was a major jump for me and kind of moving along in my process of grieving was that understanding that there's no recovery. There's integration and there's adaptation. You're adapting your life, this new life that you're in that is minus this person. You're adapting to that, but you can't recover and get back to the way things were before. And I explained this in more in the other video so that's why the first one was so important, because this card is for me about that understanding that this is the mourning process, understanding that it's cyclical. The second one is about how do I integrate the loss into the new. And so this is my Two of Swords. So this is an absolutely beautiful Two of Swords, can I just say. And for me, this instantly says, and again, things can say all kinds of stuff, but for me personally, this is that idea of choice. That it's my choice every day and how I'm going to face this particular day. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to have downswing times. That doesn't mean there aren't going to be difficult times. There's probably going to be tears. And there's probably going to be, you know what, I'm just going to stay in bed and read a book on my Kindle all day long days. But that's a I don't know what that sound is. It sounds like an airplane. Very low. Anyways, so this for me right now is reminding me that my emotions and how I deal with them is a choice that I make every day. And what I'm going to do with this process of grieving, how I'm going to integrate this into my life, is a choice that I'm going to make. And my choice is to remain balanced as much as I can, understanding that there's going to be downswings, understand like we had, and with with the wheel, if I don't know why I keep putting these down because I want to talk about them again, but that understanding the function of life and understanding the wheel, understanding the spinning of the wheel, so that I know that there are going to be days that are harder than others. But in the end, what I do with each of my days is going to be a choice. And so I do want to remember that. And then the third one is about adaptation. And this is about, I really like this particular card because, or this particular position, because this position is about adapting something from before, something that, minus the grief, minus the loss, something that was part of who you were before, and how can you adapt that into as you move forward. How can you adapt that in a way that will help you through the grieving process? And so for me, here we have the High Priestess. So I've gotten many things in this because I've done this for myself to touch bases. Sometimes, a lot of times, I get sort of wandy things, wand energy, that idea of understanding, tapping into my creativity. So for me, it was writing. So writing is a lot to do with my repurposing of my grief, or adapting the grieving process, adapting something that I was good at before, which was my writing, and using that to help me through the grieving process. So that kind of, usually a lot of creative cards will show up in this position for me, but we have today the High Priestess. So then, that really taps me into that intuition, that sort of that deep well. I love High Priestesses, and this one has the blue down here, and that sense of the waters of the subconscious and being tapped into that. And so this really speaks to me about that gut, whatever that chakra or gut place is, that understanding early on. So this is mid-September, but being able to have that kind of intuitive hit, that being in touch with my inner self and my inner life and my inner self enough to say, okay, something's starting to churn up. Okay, this is what it is, so that I can get on top of it, before I'm under the covers for 3 days having a really, really horrible day. And again, it doesn't mean that those days aren't going to come, because you know what? They probably will. It's going to be the holidays. There's probably going to be some days in which, I'm just going to be under the covers with some chocolate. I still have, Hilton gave me, I've had 2 of them. I have this Knoppers. They're really good, that I'm saving. And so I might be under the covers. I'm sure I'll be under the covers at some point with my Knoppers and a book. That's going to happen. But but being able to be in touch with my feelings and my emotions and where I'm at in the process early on helps me to get on top of things, so I can start those self-care kinds of things earlier, rather than being in the middle of it. So that's kind of what this card says to me in a real quick little pull like that. So this is something that you can do, if you're in the midst of that grieving process. Just, kind of pull 3 cards, shuffle it up, pull 3 cards, and go through that kind of process where, okay, what is it that I need to know about the actual mourning process that's going to help me right now? How can I combine sort of my innate understanding with this sort of grieving process? What is it there that I can integrate in? And sort of, again, this is that to understand. I do believe that life is choice. I do believe that love is a choice. There's all kinds of things that I believe is more choice than we give them credit for. And so taking that deeper, kind of core thing of mine, and applying that to the grieving process is for me personally. This is because it's just for me. For you, that may not, you may not have that connection with choice, but for me that is. And so this is a very powerful card for me to have in that. And then thirdly, what is it about, what is there something that I can adapt that's going to help me adapt about myself, my core sense of who I am? How can I use that to my advantage moving forward? And so for me, this is going to be my intuition and being really in touch with my internal sense, so that my spidey senses can go off early, and so I can be really checking with myself. So that's something that you can do if you're in this process, and be able to kind of check in And again, that's all about being able to check in like that. Just kind of lets us get the heads up. So that's all. This was really rambly. Again, I didn't really plan on this, but sometimes you just have to go with it, and you guys are all used to my rambling. So if you are in the same situation as I am, and you are in the process of grieving, or have, again, holidays can bring things up from a long time ago. There's no time limit on grief. I really don't believe that. We might get better at dealing with it in between times, but when things like the holidays and certain days roll around, it can hit you like it was 2 minutes ago. So I'm not, whatever stage you're at in terms of time period, I'm sorry. I really am sorry for your loss. This is a club that I wouldn't wish anybody to be in with me, because it's horrible. There's no way around the fact that it's a terrible situation to be in, and I'm sorry that you're in this situation. You're not alone, and I'm definitely sending out lots of good energy to everybody that is in this position. And again, if you're not in this position, but you have a friend or family member that is, just be aware that we're rolling up on some hard times and give them a little extra love from me.